The ground trembled beneath the weight of Acrocanthosaurus as it moved with deliberate power through the ancient forest. Its tall spine rose like jagged mountains above its back, casting a fearsome shadow across the land. Prey scattered in panic, yet none could outrun the hunger that drove this predator forward. Every step was a promise of dominance, every roar a declaration that the world belonged to its kind. This was no ordinary hunter. It was a force carved from time itself. To witness its rise was to witness the raw truth of survival written in blood and thunder. The world of the early Cretaceous was unlike anything seen today. Vast plains stretched endlessly under a blazing sun while forests of towering conifers reached toward the sky like living monuments of green stone. Rivers cut deep paths through valleys carrying life across the land, while storms rolled heavy with thunder above. In this age, life was raw and survival was a daily trial for every creature that walked, crawled, or flew. It was here in this untamed world that Acrocanthosaurus ruled with power and ferocity unmatched by nearly any rival. Acrocanthosaurus was no ordinary predator. Its name meant high-spined lizard, and for good reason. Running along its back stood tall spines that rose like jagged peaks above its massive frame. These spines gave the animal a striking appearance and made it an unmistakable figure in the primeval landscape. At nearly 40 feet long and weighing several tons, it towered over most creatures that dared to cross its path. Its jaws lined with serrated teeth were weapons of brutal efficiency, capable of tearing flesh from bone in a single strike. This was the apex predator of its time, and its story is one of survival dominance and the raw power of evolution. The early Cretaceous was filled with challenges. Herds of herbivores roamed the plains and forests, always on alert for danger. Iguanodons moved in groups, feeding on the lush vegetation, while nodosaurs lumbered with heavy armor across the land. Sauropods stretched their long necks to reach the tallest branches, creating living walls of muscle and bone. Yet no matter their size or strength, each creature had reason to fear the shadow of Acrocanthosaurus. When it appeared, silence would fall over the land. Birds would take flight in frantic flocks, and even the rivers seemed to quiet as though nature itself acknowledged its presence. What made Acrocanthosaurus so formidable was not only its size, but its behavior. Unlike many solitary predators, this giant may have hunted in pairs, or even small groups working together to bring down prey far larger than themselves. Evidence from trackways hints at coordinated movement, suggesting that these beasts were not only powerful, but also intelligent in their strategies. Imagine the terror of a herd of iguanodons as they realized they were being surrounded by hunters whose every step was calculated. It was not simply a battle of strength, but of cunning and coordination that set Acrocanthosaurus apart. Its territory stretched across what is now North America, from the lush lowlands of the south to the wide plains further north. In these regions, climate varied from wet and humid forests to arid, open spaces. Acrocanthosaurus adapted to them all, moving silently through forests and striking with brutal speed across open ground. This adaptability made it not only a master of one region, but a ruler of many. Wherever it roamed, it left behind a memory of fear carved into the land and the bones of its prey. To fully understand the rise of Acrocanthosaurus, one must imagine the world through its eyes. It did not see beauty in the forest or rivers. It saw opportunity. Every rustle in the undergrowth was a sign of potential prey. Every trail of scent carried the story of a creature waiting to be caught. The world was not gentle but cruel, and Acrocanthosaurus thrived within it because it was built for survival. Its massive claws tore into flesh while its powerful legs carried it with shocking speed for an animal of its size. There was no hesitation, no mercy, only instinct sharpened by countless generations of hunters before it. For the smaller creatures of its world, survival meant vigilance. Ornithopods grazed in open areas, but always kept a sentinel watching the horizon for the dreaded silhouette of the high-spined hunter. Armored dinosaurs trusted their shields of bone and spikes, yet even they were not safe when confronted with the crushing power of its jaws. Even young sauropods, enormous by the standards of most creatures, found themselves vulnerable if separated from their herds. Acrocanthosaurus knew weakness and struck without hesitation. The reign of such a predator shaped the ecosystem itself. Herbivores traveled in larger groups for safety. Nesting sites were chosen carefully, often in hidden or hard-to-reach places. Even flying reptiles and primitive birds reacted to its presence by fleeing long before it arrived. Life in the Cretaceous was built around a balance of fear and power, and Acrocanthosaurus stood at the center of that balance. Its story is not only about the predator, but also about the world that gave rise to it. The early Cretaceous was a period of change where continents shifted and climates transformed. New plants spread across the land, while ancient lineages struggled to adapt. Into this shifting stage stepped Acrocanthosaurus, perfectly designed to thrive in the chaos. Its spines may have served as displays to intimidate rivals or attract mates. They may have helped regulate body temperature in the sweltering heat. Whatever their exact purpose, they marked the beast as unique a silhouette that no other could match. For humans discovering its fossils millions of years later, the image of Acrocanthosaurus sparked awe and curiosity. Paleontologists pieced together its skeleton from stone, unearthing the story of an apex predator that once walked the earth. Each fossil told a chapter of its life, from teeth worn by the grind of bone, the tracks pressed deep into ancient mud. Through these clues, scientists reconstructed not only the creature itself, but the world it lived in. They imagined the forests of prey and the endless battles fought in the struggle for dominance. Yet for the creatures of its own time, there was no awe-only fear. The roar of Acrocanthosaurus could echo across valleys, sending flocks into the sky and herds into panic. Its approach meant death for some and survival for others. In the silence that followed its hunt, the land itself seemed to breathe again, relieved yet trembling for the next encounter. This was the rhythm of life in the Cretaceous, and Acrocanthosaurus was a heartbeat of power that kept it moving. The introduction of this predator into the grand stage of history marks more than just the presence of a hunter. It marks the shaping of ecosystems, the evolution of prey, and the relentless drive of life to adapt in the face of danger. Acrocanthosaurus was not simply an animal, but a symbol of the age. To know its story is to know the raw essence of survival, where only the strongest and most cunning endure. This is the beginning of that story. A story of towering forests, of vast plains of rivers heavy with life, and skies alive with wings. A story where every creature played its part in the endless cycle of existence. Yet above them all stood one beast whose spine silhouette dominated the horizon. The high-spined lizard, the master of its age. This is a world of Acrocanthosaurus, and its tale is written in the dust of ancient earth and the echoes of forgotten thunder. The land was alive with sound. Rivers gushed through rocky paths, filling the air with the roar of rushing water. Insects whirred above ferns, while the calls of primitive birds echoed through the canopy. Herds of iguanodons moved cautiously across open plains, their heads lowering to strip plants, but lifting in unison whenever a shadow passed. Each creature felt in the air a pressure that whispered danger, a reminder that the high-spined hunter could emerge at any moment. Deep in the shade of a conifer forest, a pair of Acrocanthosaurs moved with silent precision. Their massive bodies shifted between trees, their footsteps heavy yet deliberate, their tails cutting slow arcs to balance their weight. One was older with scars etched into its hide, the other younger with sharper energy and eyes that glowed with restless hunger. Together, they formed a force more terrifying than any single predator. The older one taught patience, while the younger brought speed and fire. Far ahead, the herd of iguanodons drank from a shallow river. They dipped their beaks into the cool water, unaware of how close death crept. Juveniles played near the edge of the group, kicking at the mud, while the larger adults guarded from behind. Their tails swayed nervously, yet they did not flee. The forest appeared still. This stillness was a mask, and behind it 2 hunters prepared to strike. The older Acrocanthosaurus lowered itself into the cover of ferns, its spines casting shadows across the ground. The younger one circled wide, moving to cut off escape routes. A plan unfolded without sound, shaped by instinct and experience. The herd remained calm until one sentinel lifted its head and froze. Its eyes widened at the shifting silhouette among the trees. It let out a sharp cry, and the herd surged into motion. The attack was instant. The older hunter exploded from cover with a roar that shook the ground. Trees bent from the sudden burst of muscle and speed. The herd panicked, trampling water and mud as they fled toward open plains. The younger predator rushed from the opposite side, driving them back toward its partner. Confusion spread through the herd as they collided with one another, cries filling the air. A juvenile iguanodon slipped on wet soil. Its legs scrambled but failed to find footing. In an instant, the younger Acrocanthosaurus lunged, its jaws snapping around the struggling creature. Bones cracked under the pressure of its bite. The juvenile cried out, but the sound was brief silenced by the force of predation. Blood colored the shallow water, while the herd fled, further leaving their fallen behind. The older hunter slowed, watching his companion secure the kill. Its role had been to drive panic, to split the herd, and it had succeeded. Together they feasted, tearing flesh in long strands, their teeth shredding the body with brutal efficiency. Carrion birds circled above, already sensing the kill. The cycle of life was merciless yet balanced. For Acrocanthosaurus, survival meant dominance, and the rising hunger had been silenced, at least for now. As night fell, the land grew restless. Insects buzzed louder. Frogs croaked near the river, and distant calls echoed from predators on the move. The pair of Acrocanthosaurs rested near, their bellies full, but their minds alert. The younger one shifted constantly, lifting its head to scan the horizon. The older one remained still, conserving energy, its breathing slow and heavy. Above them the stars burned in an ancient sky, reminding that even the mightiest hunter was but part of a greater world. Yet danger did not always flow in one direction. In another valley, massive sauropods moved in herds their size, dwarfing nearly everything else. To challenge them required not just courage, but strategy. The younger Acrocanthosaurus watched them from afar, its eyes filled with desire. So much meat walked in that herd, enough to feed for weeks. But the older one did not move. It knew the cost of recklessness. One misstep against the sauropod's tail, or foot, could mean death. For now they lingered on the edges, hunting smaller prey, waiting for opportunity. Days turned into weeks, and the season shifted. Rainstorms swept across the land, drenching the plains and swelling rivers. The world became heavy with mud, making hunts more dangerous, yet also more rewarding. Herbivores slowed in the mire, their movements clumsy, their escape less certain. Acrocanthosaurus thrived in these conditions, using the chaos of the storm to conceal its approach. One such storm set the stage for another hunt. Dark clouds rolled overhead as lightning split the sky. The roar of thunder masked the sound of footsteps. A herd of nodosaurs trudged through thick mud, their armored backs gleaming under flashes of light. They trusted in their shields of bone and spikes to protect them. But protection was not perfection. The hunters knew this. The younger predator struck first, charging from the side. It snapped at the legs of Nodosaur, driving it away from the group. The older one waited, then lunged from the opposite direction. The Nodosaur swung its tail lined with sharp spines, striking at the air with bone-shattering force. The blow grazed the younger hunter's side, drawing blood, but failing to halt the attack. With terrifying coordination, both predators attacked from different angles, their teeth sinking into unarmored flesh near the legs. The Nodosaur bellowed and struggled, but the mud trapped its feet and slowed its defense. In moments it collapsed under the combined assault, its armor no longer enough to save it. The victory was costly. The younger Acrocanthosaurus limped with a wound that bled freely. The older one nudged it forward, urging it to endure. For them, every scar was a lesson, every wound a reminder of the thin line between dominance and death. They fed in silence, while rain poured around them, washing blood into the mud. The storm raged, but they endured, for endurance was their nature. As the land dried in the weeks that followed, a shift occurred. Other predators began to encroach on their territory. Smaller theropods scavenged from their kills, darting in to snatch scraps before fleeing. Pterosaurs swooped down to steal flesh in daring strikes. Even the boldest of these rivals could not match their power, yet the constant harassment wore on their patience. The younger one snarled and gave chase, often wasting energy on fleeting shadows. The older one remained calm, conserving strength for true battles. That battle came sooner than expected. One evening the pair encountered another Acrocanthosaurus, wandering near the edge of their range. Its spine stood tall, and its body bore the marks of many hunts. This was no juvenile, but a rival of equal size. The air grew heavy as the three predators faced one another. Roars split the silence, echoing across the plains. The younger one charged forward, reckless and eager. The older one followed more cautiously, its eyes never leaving the rival. The clash was thunderous. Jaws snapped and claws raked through scales. The ground shook as titans collided. The rival struck with ferocity, biting deep into the younger one's neck. Blood sprayed across the earth as cries of pain filled the air. The older hunter lunged to defend, slamming its bulk into the rival with crushing force. The struggle raged, each strike carving wounds into flesh, each roar carrying the weight of survival. At last the rival faltered. Blood loss slowed its movements and exhaustion clouded its eyes. With one final surge, the older hunter forced it to retreat. The sun burned low on the horizon, painting the sky with hues of blood and fire. Heat shimmered over the plains, and the air felt thick with foreboding weight. The two acrocanthosaurs stood at the edge of their territory, their bodies lean from constant battle, their eyes sharp with hunger. For days prey had grown scarce, and rivals had pressed closer to their range. Each step of survival had drawn them to this moment where the fragile balance of power would break. The younger one still bore the scars of its earlier clash with a rival. Its limp was faint, but present its muscles strained with each stride. Yet its spirit blazed stronger than ever, for it had learned that pain was not weakness, but a teacher. The older one carried its own burden. Time had begun to slow its reflexes. Its body carried deep scars carved by years of survival. But its mind was sharp, and it knew what the land whispered. Change was coming, and their reign would be tested in fire and blood. That change revealed itself in the form of a monstrous shadow moving across a valley. A massive sauropod herd trudged toward the river, their colossal bodies creating tremors in the ground. They had always been a prize too great to claim except under the most desperate conditions. Yet desperation now wrapped around the acrocanthosaurs like a noose. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, and the emptiness of their land left them with few choices. The younger one growled, eager to strike. Its body tensed as it watched the stragglers of the herd move behind the main group. Among them a weakened sauropod lagged behind its steps, uneven its head, hanging low with exhaustion. The opportunity glimmered like fire in the dark. The older one studied carefully. To bring down such prey required more than strength. It demanded patience, precision, and sacrifice. At last it nodded, giving silent signal. The hunt began. They circled wide, moving with slow, deliberate steps to remain hidden. Dust rose from the ground as the herd passed, their tails sweeping like living fortresses. Each giant was capable of killing with a single blow, yet the hunters pressed forward undeterred, their eyes fixed on the lagging sauropod whose weakness marked it for death. The younger Acrocanthosaurus launched the first attack, bursting from cover with a roar that split the valley. The herd bellowed and alarmed their formation, shifting like a wall of living towers. The target stumbled as panic surged through the group. The older hunter charged from the opposite side, teeth, bared claws ready. The battle of titans had begun. The sauropod swung its massive tail to the air, cracking like thunder. The younger one dodged narrowly the strike, smashing into the earth with force that shook the ground. Dirt and stone exploded outward as the predator lunged for the sauropod's legs, sinking teeth into thick flesh. Blood poured in crimson streams, staining the soil. The sauropod screamed a deep, echoing cry that reverberated through the valley. The older one struck next, tearing into the other leg, seeking to cripple its movement. The sauropod staggered, crashing into smaller trees, its immense weight toppling trunks like twigs. The herd began to scatter, fearful of becoming trapped in the chaos. Dust and cries filled the air as the battlefield transformed into a storm of power and desperation. The young predator clung to the wounded leg, its teeth grinding deeper into muscle. But the sauropod fought with the fury of survival. Its tail lashed again, striking the side of the younger one with bone-shattering force. The predator was hurled across the ground, its body rolling through dirt and stone. It struggled to rise, blood streaming from fresh wounds. Its roar was defiant, yet weaker than before. The older hunter saw the danger and charged with renewed rage. It slammed into the sauropod's side, tearing at its flank, biting into muscle with relentless strength. The sauropod staggered but did not fall. With one final desperate effort, it reared back, slamming its foreleg into the ground where the older one had stood. The earth cracked under the impact, dust rising like smoke. The predator avoided the crushing blow by mere heartbeats, but the force of the ground collapse sent it sprawling. For a moment silence seemed to stretch as both hunters lay battered, the sauropod towering above them, bleeding yet still alive. Its eyes burned with fury, its chest heaving with thunderous breaths. Victory seemed to slip away like water through clawed hands. Then the younger one rose again. Its body trembled, but its eyes gleamed with unyielding fire. With a roar that echoed across the valley, it launched itself back into the fray. It lunged with a wounded leg against its teeth, clamping with every ounce of strength it had left. The sauropod screamed, stumbling as blood loss began to drain its will. The older one seized the moment. Rising to its feet, it charged with every fragment of power left in its ancient body. It drove its jaws deep into the sauropod's neck, tearing through flesh with savage precision. Blood erupted in torrents, spraying across the battlefield. The sauropod thrashed one final time, then collapsed with earth-shaking force, sending shock waves across the valley. Silence fell. The younger Acrocanthosaurus released its grip, stumbling back, its body quivering from exhaustion. The older one remained locked upon the fallen giant, its teeth still buried in flesh, as if unwilling to release until certain of victory. At last it let go, stepping back to view the result of their greatest battle. The sauropod lay still, its life extinguished by relentless determination. The valley seemed to pause. Carrion birds circled overhead, sensing the death below. The herd had long fled, leaving the hunters alone with their prize. The air smelled of blood, and dust heavy with the weight of struggle. The younger one collapsed to its knees, panting heavily. Its body bore wounds that would scar forever, its strength drained nearly to nothing. Yet in its eyes there was triumph of fire that even pain could not extinguish. It had faced a storm of giants and endured. The older one limped to its side, pressing its head gently against its companion's. No words were spoken, yet their bond was undeniable. They had faced the impossible together and carved victory from the jaws of despair. But victory carried its own price. The older one's body shook with fatigue, its wounds deep, its breath shallow. It knew the truth. Time was catching it like an unrelenting tide. This hunt had been its greatest triumph, yet perhaps also its last. The younger one would carry forward the legacy forged in blood. The world would continue to test, but the line of hunters would endure. The climax of their journey had been written in earth-shaking roars and crimson stains. From the silence that followed rose not just triumph but revelation. The Acrocanthosaurs were not gods nor invincible shadows. They were flesh and bone, driven by hunger, bound by struggle, sustained by will. Their reign was forged not in ease but in endless battle. That was their truth, their destiny, their storm. The giant sauropod lay motionless upon the earth, its towering form stretched like a fallen mountain. The cries of the herd had faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of wind brushing through broken trees. Dust settled slowly, revealing the marks of struggle gouged deep into the soil. For the younger Acrocanthosaurus, the world felt heavy yet strangely calm. The storm of battle had ended, but the echoes of its fury still rang within its chest. The young hunter dragged itself forward one step at a time, its limbs stiff with pain, its ribs burning with every breath. Its wounds stung, but none were mortal. Its heart beat strong, reminding it that survival was still within its grasp. Hunger gnawed at its belly, and the smell of fresh blood from the fallen giant awakened primal determination. This kill would sustain it for days, maybe weeks. It had survived the test and won the prize. The older hunter approached more slowly, its steps uneven, its body swaying under the weight of exhaustion. Blood marked its flank where the sauropod's final strikes had cut deep, yet its eyes held no fear. It had faced countless battles and knew that every scar was both burden and story. It paused beside the carcass, lowering its head as if acknowledging the enormity of the moment. To bring down such prey was not simply a victory, it was a statement of survival against odds that defied reason. For a time, the two hunters stood together, breathing heavily, surrounded by silence. The air was thick with the iron scent of blood and the faint buzz of insects already gathering. Above them, vultures and scavenging birds circled, knowing that soon their turn would come. But for now, the valley belonged to the Acrocanthosaurs. Their roars had written dominance into the land, and none dared challenge them in that moment. The younger one tore into the flesh, first ripping through layers of muscle and sinew. Warm blood coated its jaws, filling its hunger with a satisfaction it had long been denied. The older one followed those slower, taking measured bites, conserving strength. Each mouthful restored fragments of their failing energy. For the younger hunter, the feast was fuel for a future filled with promise. For the elder, it was more than food, it was farewell. As night fell, the world transformed into shadows and whispers. The stars stretched across the heavens, watching silently as predators and prey shared their endless cycle. Fireflies blinked faintly among the broken foliage, casting small sparks of light against the darkness. The young Acrocanthosaurus curled close to the carcass, protecting it from scavengers that prowled nearby. Hybridus crocodilians lurked near the river, their eyes glowing, but they dared not approach yet. The older one lay apart, gazing not at the prey, but at the sky. Its breaths were shallow, its body trembling from exertion. It knew the truth written in the ache of its bones. Its time was nearing its end. The battle against the sauropod had drained more than it could give. Survival had always been about taking one more step, facing one more dawn. But sometimes even the strongest hunters reached the edge of their road. The younger one noticed the stillness of its companion and nudged gently. A low growl escaped its throat, not of aggression but concern. The elder raised its head, slowly meeting the gaze of the one who would inherit its place. No roar, no gesture could carry the weight of the bond they shared. It was a silent passing of legacy. One life had fought to open a path, and another would walk upon it. The night stretched long, filled with distant cries of other creatures, reclaiming their lives after the chaos of battle. Raptors called in the dark small predators, scurried in the undergrowth, and insects hummed in endless chorus. The young hunter guarded the kill tirelessly, its eyes glowing faintly in the starlight. Yet every so often it glanced toward the older one. Fear did not stir in its heart, but something deeper, a recognition of change. When dawn broke, the valley glowed with soft golden light. Mist rose from the river, curling across the battlefield, as if trying to hide the scars of the night before. The young Acrocanthosaurus rose, stretching stiff limbs and returning to feed again. It needed strength to continue for life in the land, did not pause for grief or memory. The world was relentless in its demand for endurance. The elder did not rise. Its body lay still, its breath gone with the night. The great predator who had ruled for seasons uncounted had given its last roar and surrendered to time. Its body remained beside the fallen sauropod as if carved into the land itself. It had fought not just for survival, but for the future of its kind. In its passing, it gave a younger one more than food, it gave direction. The young Acrocanthosaurus lowered its head, pressing against the still form in silent farewell. No sound carried the moment, yet the meaning was clear. Survival demanded forward motion, but bonds of kinship left marks deeper than claws. It lingered there for a time, then turned its eyes to the horizon. Beyond the valley, new challenges waited, new herds to follow, new rivals to face. The world stretched vast and unforgiving, yet also full of promise. Carrion birds descended upon the battlefield, eager for their share. Crocodilians crept closer from the river, seizing scraps that drifted near the water. The cycle of life resumed with ruthless rhythm. But the young predator did not yield its prize easily. With a mighty roar, it sent the scavengers scattering. Its claim over the valley stood unbroken, at least for now. As the day wore on, the young hunter fed again, restoring strength for the path ahead. Its muscles ached, but they also grew stronger, hardened by trial. The memory of the elder would remain etched in every step it took. That memory was not a weight, but a guide, a reminder that survival was never gifted freely, but earned with blood and fire. By nightfall, the young Acrocanthosaurus rose, once more leaving the remains of the kill behind. It looked across the open plains where shadows stretched long under the moonlight. Each step it took echoed with purpose. It was no longer just a survivor. It was the heir of a legacy forged through endless struggle. The land would test it again and again. Yet it would meet those trials with the strength it carried forward from the one who came before. The valley fell quiet once more. Where giants had clashed, silence reigned. Yet within that silence lived a truth that would endure beyond a single battle. Life always moved forward, and those who dared to fight against its storm left their mark upon the earth. The young Acrocanthosaurus carried that mark, now a living testament to survival, perseverance, and the eternal rhythm of predator and prey. The plains stretched wide beneath the rising sun-golden light, spilling across endless grass and broken stone. The young Acrocanthosaurus moved with renewed strength, its body scarred, yet alive, its eyes sharp with purpose. Behind it, the valley of battle lay, far away, fading into memory, yet never truly gone. Every step carried echoes of the elder, every scar a reminder of what survival demanded. The land ahead was not gentle. Towering forests waited filled with raptors and lurking dangers. Rivers carved deep channels where crocodilians ruled with snapping jaws. Herds of massive herbivores marched across the horizon, shaking the earth with their weight. Each path promised struggle, and each horizon whispered of trials still unseen. Yet the young hunter did not hesitate. It had faced a storm and endured. At the edge of a ridge it paused, lifting its head high. The wind carried scents of prey, faint but fresh. It growled low, not of fear, but of certainty. Hunger would always return battles, would always come rivals, would always rise. This was the rhythm of the world, unbroken since the dawn of time, and in that rhythm the Acrocanthosaurus would carve its place. The sky filled with circling birds, their cries sharp, as if announcing its journey to the land below. Shadows swept across its tall spine, yet it did not falter. Instead it roared into the morning air, a sound that rolled across the plains and echoed through the forest. It was not just a call of hunger, it was a declaration. The age of giants still belonged to those who dared to fight for it. The sound faded, but its meaning lingered, carried by the wind across rivers, valleys, and forests. Somewhere distant, another predator might hear it and rise to answer. Somewhere prey might tremble and flee. The world would turn unchanged by the fall of one life or the rise of another. Yet for this moment, the young hunter stood at the edge of destiny, certain of the road before it. The story of Acrocanthosaurus was not just about survival. It was about legacy, about battles that shaped the earth, and about lives that carried forward against every storm. And as the young hunter disappeared into the horizon, its roar still echoed eternal.